Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Unversed podcast. Danny here. Today, I got special guest, the man Kadesh Flow.
Yo,
And how's it going, man?
it's good, man. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah, now, last time we talked, I saw you at Anime Expo. And since then, it's just been crazy what you've been going through with music-wise. You've been so busy, and recently you just dropped an EP called Room Service, which has an interesting story to it, right? You recorded it during MagFest of this year, right?
Yeah, in the hotel room.
Yeah, in the hotel room, and you say in the EP, like during sets, like in between the days, you're just in the hotel room recording. And I remember watching, I think it was like your Instagram stories, like, a few months ago, you doing the, recording the EP, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. This is pretty cool. If you want to hear our review, we have it up, on the podcast. And I have to say, man, it's really good. My first question, I guess, is the features, because you got some great features on here, like, were they with you, like, for the hotel, or is it just, features that you got after you recorded it during the hotel room?
So that's a great question. So everybody on the EP was actually in the room, even though not everything on there was done in the room. So Shubs started writing in the hotel room and then recorded her verse at Bill Beats' house in Seattle when they were back home. And IQ was a similar thing. Like, we talked about and conceptualized how the song was going to go. And then he sent me his verse a few weeks later when he was back in Orlando or wherever he was in in the country. So yeah, it was mostly like the skeleton and a lot of the meat of the EP was done in the hotel room, but like I re-recorded stuff. I wrote, for example, progressions. I wrote it in its entirety at MagFest, and there was a beat I was going to use for it, but I didn't actually record it until I was back home. I started recording FYI in the hotel room and finished recording it when I was back home. But everything, like the beats, were all pretty much all done in the hotel room, with the exception of the progression. Like I did the drum patterns and stuff in the hotel room, but I was really nervous about trying to do the trombone stuff in the hotel for a lot of, because trombone's loud.
Right.
So actually, I didn't do that until I was back, for example. So it's a mix, but everybody involved in the project was actually like at multiple points, like huddled in a room, Oh Super literally walked in from a party and laid down his verse, grabbed the drink. We kicked it for a second. He left and went somewhere else. It was kind of just like that.
Oh, man, that's pretty crazy, man. It's a very interesting way to come up with an EP. So what gave you the idea that I should make an EP in the hotel room during MagFest?
That's kind of wild too. So everything about the CP is spontaneous, including releasing it, because I wasn't 100% sure I was going to release it the way I did until I was like in Austin for South by Southwest, and I had got the masters back from my buddy. That was also a last minute request, and submitted it. So like everything's spontaneous in a lot of senses. The idea for the EP really came from I started writing actually resolutions. The part one, the version with Shubzilla on it, I started writing that the night before my flight to DC for MagFest, and I wrote like the first two verses, and I started writing the third verse on the plane to MagFest. The third verse was looking like it was going to be so long, and I was like, this needs to be a part two, and that's how progression started. So initially it was because MagFest, as you know, is at the very beginning of the year. So MagFest means a lot to me for things that I think you know, but just for the sake of whoever might be listening, MagFest was the first show that really, really started everything for me, from like getting booked at like bigger conventions consistently. Mega Ran brought a lot of the NPC collective out, or invited us out to MagFest, because he had like 3 shows and they were all main stage. So we turned one of them into a showcase. And, I came, Richie Branson came, IQ, Samus, basically everybody, I think, except Sky Blue and Shubzilla were able to come. And we all had a song. For like 4,500 people were in this room. Like it was ridiculous. It was the whole ballroom that holds like 5,000 people, was almost at capacity. And I got booked from that for a bunch of stuff. So MagFest means a lot. So I was thinking about the new year and like where I was in my music journey and MagFest. And I just started writing my thoughts because I just write bars when I'm randomly inspired anyway. But normally they're scattered lines. Like I might get a dope bar and to build around later. In this case, it was like, I'm getting whole entire songs and trying to figure out when I'm going to have time to write them. So that's kind of how it came about. So like, because I knew that I was getting entire songs, like I have, a lot of the concept for room service was in my head, like walking into MagFest, and then I just built it once it got going to really write about where I actually was and the specific moments I was in and include that and build the concept around it. But since that was what was happening, I just hit up a few people and I was like, yo, so I brought stuff. Atlas, I know, is coming from Atlanta. He's bringing his setup. We should just like vibe out and kick it because I've got concepts. And people were like, cool. And there are people I talked to who just didn't have time to be on it, who like were there at MagFest and are really dope. And I don't want to name drop them, but it's people you know about. If there were like 2 more days, there probably would have been a few other people on the project. It's just like a really dope vibe. But that's how it came about. And then once like we were in the middle of these concepts, I think we had resolutions, room service, glassy eyes, and FYI at least at a skeleton level. And I was like, I think I'm just going to call this project room service because that's kind of an ironic title relative to what's actually happening right now. So that's how it happened.
Right on, man. Yeah, that's kind of a crazy weekend, I would say. I know when I kick back with my friends over here, we definitely like, yeah, let's just kick back, put some instrumentals on and then let's just have fun. So this basically sounds like that. And, I do have to say, like, all the features, instrumentals are just amazing on here.
Thanks.
My favorite track is actually Progression because, mainly the trombone part that you have going on. I know that's always a big part for your music. And just the lyrics as well is really great stuff. Also, I kind of noticed here, you kind of experimented a little, right? As far as how you approach lyrics. I believe it was, Glassy Eyes or Basics. You go a very different route with your music. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. I think a lot's happening. It's been it's been, I'd say 2 and 3/4 years since I released a project between, room service and We Are the Faithful was in like October 2015. So it's kind of wild. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like I'm working on 2 albums right now that are more studio projects. But in that time period, there's a lot that I've learned about songwriting just from listening to great songwriters and studying them. So people always tell me they're like, you rap really, really well, but you really should try to like slow it down sometimes and like not dumb your lyrics down, but just slow it down. Just like ride the beat sometimes. Like be more, you still want to kill every track, but you don't want to be killing every track to show off. You want to do it with taste and touch. And I've kind of just been recognizing the things that make great songwriters great. So I've been listening to like a lot of like Tom Petty and Jason Isbell, Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. I think both are great songwriters, even though I think Cole's music is kind of boring. Just in like how some of these great songwriters craft their songs, even like somebody like a Taylor Swift, or these people who are really prolific songwriters in this day, Drake, Kendrick and Drake, from a hip hop standpoint, they do whatever they want. And there are a lot of instances where they do a lot with a little. And I've been learning just about that touch and, like you said, experimenting with how I deliver it. So one thing that a lot of people have noticed is that I'm not chopping every track. Like I rap fast a lot, and I really kind of slowed down a lot on this and kind of just vary rhythms. And more of that is really just partially because of the speed of the project, because like I hate rapping fast just to rap fast. And a lot of times when you hear songs like an All Day, for example, or All Day is not a good example because that was actually kind of spontaneous, but not spontaneous, but that was done pretty quickly. But I had a lot of time to think about All Day, actually, so it is a good example. A lot where you hear songs where I'm rapping fast and I'm still saying a lot, and the bars are really intricate, and like there's a lot of internal rhyme within the rhymes, and then there's a lot of punchlines and a lot of references, but I'm still like going a million miles an hour. That's because I actually took time to rework things, or I had so long to sit on the concept that like with All Day, it was for a competition, and Richie Branson sent me the beat kind of last minute, and we won that competition off of last minute entries. But I had 3 weeks to think about whatever contract we were working on. So whenever he sent me the beat, I just reworked it. So I was slower partially because it was, we did this in like 4 days for the most part. Almost all the writing was done in that time period, and I really just wanted to make sure I was saying what was in my heart and being honest and just being authentic and not forcing anything. So some of the all the like, I guess, quote unquote experimentation it really kind of occurred naturally to me. Just because I think of how I've been listening to music. I've been listening to music differently, and I've really embraced the jazz side of me that influences my cadences, and really, really just embrace that as a hip hop vocalist, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think that's great to show, because I remember, I believe your Bonkai Flow mixtape, you actually do have a few tracks right there, right, where you're rapping really fast, you're saying a lot of stuff, and I guess it's also one of those things where you don't want to be repetitious with it, right? Like you just said earlier, you don't want to rap just to rap fast. So I think it's great that you are expanding the way you are approaching your lyrics in songs. And is that something that we could probably be seeing in your future albums?
Yeah, absolutely. These 2 albums that I'm working on were actually one album, and they were so huge that, and I don't like, if I were signed to a major label and like had put out really huge albums before, I would be fine with discarding stuff and stuff never seeing the light of day. I think as an independent artist, that's kind of dumb. And if you've got content that's dope, you should find a way to put it out. So all the B-side stuff that didn't make the cohesive idea of what I wanted for the original album concept, I actually have pulled into another album that I'm going to release before the album I actually want to release. So it's good content. It's good for content's sake. It also gives me time to build momentum, and there's a lot of varying, I guess, sounds on that. It's cohesive, like everything's kind of packaged in a way that makes sense organizationally. But I think, yeah, you're gonna see a lot more like everything's blended. Dash, like where when you first started listening to me, I was rapping about Bleach specifically, or I was rapping specifically about Final Fantasy or something like that. Whereas now it's always like what's happening in life in reference to these things. And so everything's blended. So it's like kind of a more cohesive experience. And I've learned, I used to be worried about doing that until I started performing at hip hop shows that had nothing to do with nerdcore consistently. Like Kansas City has a strong jazz scene and a strong hip hop scene, and with Strange Music here, and learning basically like these cats in Strange Music are all super nerds. And like a lot of these hip hop cats are really nerds, and there's a lot of history of rappers being nerds, that are just hood. And it's just an aspect of nerddom that doesn't get appreciated because like so much of, there are a lot of nerdy spaces that are gate kept, which is kind of what Glassy Eyes is about. But seeing that really helped me be more confident in just blending all of my worlds. When I walked into a hip hop show and did a Dragon Ball Z rap and everybody vibed to it, but then turned around and talked about something I was actually dealing with and everybody still vibed to it. somebody can relate to anything you're doing. I think that's an important lesson for any artist or anybody doing anything remotely creative to kind of pick up and internalize.
Oh yeah, exactly. I feel the same way when it comes to nerdcore. It's a great genre, you know, and it's just people need to see it more for. And yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, all the stuff that you're talking about on Room Service is great, and you know, always seeing Megaran. Just saw him on tour with NLJ, and you know,
Yeah.
all his verses were like anime, video game, and all that, and you could kind of see how it affects the crowd. So it's definitely a slow uphill battle when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's kind of an exciting time, I think, you know, just for artists who are being authentic, especially coming from the place that we're coming from, because it's like funny seeing this thing grow. Like there's, you know, Fortnite's trying to get Drake to actually do a Fortnite rap because he plays it so much.
Right.
And well, it'll be funny because I mean, low key, there are certain people in nerdcore that labels have been trying to get to who don't want to mess with a major label because it's proven that a lot of these major label A&Rs don't really know what to do with nerdy artists or weird, quirky artists of any ilk. So like they're trying to figure out how to get to some of us, not me specifically, but some of the people who you know who are bigger than me. And I think this situation, specifically with Fortnite and Drake, is gonna even make that crazier because there are people like when I was at South by Southwest, for example, I had a founder of a pretty large independent hip hop label tell me to my face when I talked to him about what I was doing. He was like, "Oh, what you're doing is the next big thing. Record labels are trying to get to you, and you guys are so self-sufficient and principled, basically, that like, you know, they haven't figured out how to do it yet." So I think it's a good time for us right now if we can capitalize on actually maintaining what we actually want to be and being honest about who we are and authentic about what we're delivering to people, and still finding a way to continue to grow it the way we've been growing it.
Oh yeah, for sure, and especially because Nicki Minaj just came out or is coming out with the Chun-Li track, right?
Yeah, it dropped yesterday, I think. I don't really like it very much, yeah. but I do. You know, I think there's a lot to unpack about response to that. The first thing that's, I think the most obvious thing is how gate-kept nerddom is. That the fact that people have a problem with Nicki Minaj doing a song called Chun-Li is ridiculous, and really highlights the gatekeeping mindset that's in like nerdy spaces sometimes, especially in nerdcore communities. It's like you feel a self-consciousness to need to like protect something that doesn't need to be protected, never really belonged to you to begin with, to be honest. It's like not you specifically, but like, you know, theoretical you. But it also, I think, shows it's really cool to see people like, hey, you hear this Chun-Li song. I know artists who have done better songs that you may not hear of, like especially women rappers. So I see people really, really bumping Samus really hard to be like, hey, if you like the idea of Nicki Minaj rapping about, you know, kind of sort of rapping about a video game character, you should listen to this rapper who really, really knows what she's talking about and is really dope and has great production, but is at this point pretty independent, but is making a lot of noise right now, and check her out as well. And that's really cool. So like, I think everything that's happening relative to that is beneficial to someone like myself. And to the scene, I think it's really just a matter of how people are taking things and responding to them.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, one of the main reasons I found you is because I listened to a rapper who rapped about Naruto, and I was like, well, maybe there's more out there, you know. And then that's I think the same month you dropped Bankai Flow, and then oh hey look, who's this? Richie Branson, Megaran, and you know, it just expanded from there.
Wow, I didn't know that. It's wild, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how because I always think back to it, like when I first discovered like the genre, it's thinking like, man, this has been a wild ride. You know, it's definitely a great community. You know, there's just so much different type of music that's going on, especially with the NPC, you know, and then there was, you know, you brought it up earlier, the Nerdcore, vocals producer competition, right?
Yeah. Vocals producer challenge.
Yeah. That brought like way more artists than I was like, oh, who are these guys? Checking out their entry. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And yeah, I do agree. I think, you know, coming up these next few years, it's just going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be cool. I'm really surprised, but I've got a interview with the local branch of the Kansas City chapter of NPR next week, and on the phone, like on the pre-interview, the dude was like, "Man, there's so many references on room service that like it's so cool to hear in a hip hop project that like, you know, I really want you to talk about more." And you know, there are people who have been watching Nerdcore for a while, and there are people who just have no idea it exists. So it's really cool to have that conversation with people. You know, this guy from KCNPR, it's called KCR. He was so excited about my Full Metal Alchemist punches from the title track of Room Service, like where I say stuff. Where can I talk about I say like this vision is my philosopher's stone or something like that, you know. And a bunch of other stuff that he was really into, like there's one thing that I really hope people caught on there where I said, I'm feeling, because winter's here and I'm feeling like Bran with the vision. I see it and it comes to pass, you know, like a really kind of low key Game of Thrones punch. But yeah, man, it's cool to have been consistent on this thing and see the guy who inspired me to start doing it, which is Mega Ran. You know, like I was listening to Front and listening to MC Chris, but then seeing Mega Ran being like a brother who like sounded like a real hip hop cat. No offense to anybody else, but like Ran sounded like, you know, a 90s rap record rapping about video games. That really inspired me to like actually like, yeah, I should actually check out opening stuff up and putting it online. And seeing like how consistent I've been and how that growth has affected me. And then even on a much longer and larger level, seeing how consistent he's been, seeing how consistent MC Frontlot has been, you know, it's like really cool. It's really cool to see what's happening with it right now. With South by Southwest kicking off their video game portion of the festival with nerdcore artists. That's like wild.
Yeah, man, it's such a big step from where nerdcore was like so many years ago. You know, having Mega Ran being a guest at AX and you and Shub and IQ were there too, like that was a big thing. I thought.
Yeah, it was. I want to do it again. It's AX is difficult because they've gotten so huge organizationally. It seems like they're struggling a little bit to manage how huge they are. And that's not a knock on them. That's just that's like the impression that I got, and then something that some of the staff said that when we were there. So it's hard to lock anything in. But I want to get back out there. I actually locked in. They haven't announced it yet, so I'm not going to say it publicly here yet. I'm glad to tell you off the record, though. But we just locked in a contract with a similarly large convention on the East Coast, which you can probably guess what it is from that, for the summer. So I'm excited to be back in that world because I haven't really hit those hard since 2016.
Right, and like, do you feel that there's any difference with hitting a convention for a show and then just hitting up like a local area?
Absolutely. You have kind of a built-in base, but it also helps you expand out. So you see people at these conventions, and then you don't know where they live or where they're from, and a lot of times they travel from somewhere to that convention. So like, it's always building new people for when you actually do go on tour. and hit like, bars or whatever out of city, you get people who encountered you at these songs. You get like lifelong fans. I still am not super comfortable with using the word fan, but I guess that's kind of what it is. And building relationships with those guys. Like I've met you in person. Like, there are a number of people who have listened to me for years, like I'm actually friends with now, in some capacity, where like during when we were making room service, there are people at MagFest who like we're genuinely cool now. But they started out just people who listened to us, and like I was like, yo, come sit in the room, man, have a drink, listen, we're making these beats right now if you want to come and vibe. And some of them did, and just like we're really able to be kind of be a part of the process. And that's the biggest thing about Convictions. You're in a spot for like 3 or 4 days, and it just makes a huge difference. So you do this show, you've got a built-in audience to where like if you are in the right spot, you might get hundreds, if not thousands of people. You sell more merchandise and you make long-lasting connections. Plus the networking is just awesome. Especially, at the anime conventions, it's nice to be able to actually meet some of the voice actors and producers who make some of these shows and kind of connect the dots a little bit. So the con thing is really good. And it's better now. 2016, it was like I got booked for stuff off of MagFest, but I had to really prove that I could go do a good show and all that stuff. This time around, it's more like I'm still going after stuff. And, as an artist, you're always going to be going after opportunities. But some of these people are coming to me, and that's the big difference, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure. I know you're pressed for time, so I think we're going to wrap up the episode here. And Kadesh, again, thank you for coming on the show. Always great talking to you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you recently just made a Patreon, right?
Yeah, I did. I'd say in November. I kind of did it. I made it in November, really kind of I just made one post about it, and, a few people joined. And I just, kind of tested my process on them to make sure I could deliver on what I said I was going to deliver on. And then I still actually haven't really started promoting it yet. Well, I'm probably going to do this month. Just trying to get some stuff organized. But yeah, patreon.com/Kadesh Flow. I'm there.
Right on. And we're going to have the link in the description as well as the link to Grab Room Service. I think it's definitely an album that everybody should grab up and give a listen to. And can people expect you like at any shows coming up, or you're just working on stuff in the lab?
They can. I will be announcing them very soon. There's some stuff in the summer for sure. Otherwise, I'm doing a lot in Kansas City right now. Just like I kind of cycle back and forth between traveling a lot, and then I level up via the travels and whatnot, and building and claim and stuff, and then doing more in Kansas City. So summer, fall, winter, I'll be on the road a little bit. I'm working on some of that stuff now. So there's some announcements that people should look out for, convention-wise and tour-wise and all that.
Right on. So make sure everybody go check out his social media. That's at Kadesh Flow everywhere on social media, right?
That's correct.
All right. And of course, you can follow us at Unversed Podcast anywhere on social media for the latest updates on the show. And you can email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com for any question, comments, concerns. And as always, guys, we will talk to you next time.
Look, everybody talks about resolutions, man. Feel like I'm already full speed ahead. Process. When I was 26, my company CEO told me I shouldn't focus on improving the things I know were weaknesses. He just said to maximize my strengths instead. Took his words to heart, and 1 year later I heeded them. Left to do just what he told me. 7 months later, I've got half an ounce of boldness. Improving slowly as I address these bad habits. Killing like lavish when they attack me with passion. I'm hooded, man, with reactions. I only try to jab back and throw a right hook for the market. I was feigning my safety when I set foot in the office. Phone calls and gray carpets. Rolling chairs and 5 coffees. Hope the day data I charted would help me hit all my targets. Yeah, I love that job and I dug how it paid. But between the office and all the showtime I played, I spent well over a year working 20-hour days. Totally worth it, but I started making dumb mistakes. I ain't got time to be going broke to chase a dream. I'd rather stay awake and be living what I see. Thinking about my right to vote and the stakes with this regime. Cause lately on my feed, people take it with the tweets. Makes me hit the Congress site to scope the days, new bills and deeds. Seems like it's always something that they're sneaking through. We never notice, we think tweets and memes are evening news. Can't pay attention cause we're way too busy feeding feuds. Keyboard generation, we really need a clue. Airing all your business and your issues so that we can view. Lighting up online so that peeps can get a Pikachu. Catch all of the drama, algorithms, let them feed to you. Ashes to ashes, now the day is past you. Any chance of productivity rendered disastrous. Said this was your year, but now you're looking for a backup. Clickbait on your feed, producing laughter, not like it matters. Look, I'm sick of hearing your resolutions. Yeah, I just wanna be better on this day than I was on the last. Consistent, don't wanna touch the sky just to crash. I was wasting too much time and left my heart in chains. If I'm the girl, of course it's up to me to start the change. You can't threaten a bite when your bark is tame. So many people I know who could be sparking flames. It seems my peers are more dedicated to calling names. These rap communities are all the same. Quote unquote real MCs who wear their hearts on their sleeves, but not really sleeves cause thoughts are getting parted with keys. Talk to OGs and ask what the difference is between you and them when you're driving. Keyboard passion, art equivalent. Spats over nothing, getting feuds and threaten violence. Folks who making moves simply view the threads in silence. Told y'all 5 years ago to take less salt. Your blood pressure might drop if the keyboard halts. Put that time into your grind and you might see some results. Instead of lurking awkwardly in pics with peaks you exalt. Beefing you talk, but look, I don't see any walk. Work harder cause these turn-ups on the weekends are false. Yeah, talking hard like nothing can mess with you. Toxic masculinity got you threatening imaginary enemies when you're more sensitive than a recently kicked pair of testicles. Instead of letting pride get the best of you, why don't you set your eyes on what's next for you? Give your best so that I can give my best with you. Succeed so I can celebrate your success with you. I understand it seems impossible, it stresses you. Every leap I take freaks me out, it has me fretting too. Understand that these are things everyone doesn't get to do. There is so much work that I must yet pursue. I am whomever I believe I am. It's cliche until you say it, till you internalize it and then affect behavior. Suddenly everything you touch, you're expecting greatness. Now when I think to make excuses, I reject my fakeness. I grew up playing pool, I'll call my shots before I take them. At 14 said I'd live a life of constant elevation. Told everyone close to me I would stop for no occasion. My generation takes in lots of motivation. Rise and grind, it's my time, hot and potent sayings. I'm guilty of being stagnant while I would post the same things, but I refuse to believe that I'm not supposed to make it. Look, too many people who inspired me lost all their spark. Got ahead of themselves with taking shots in the dark. Yeah, failed resolutions ripped them apart. I took note, I was awestruck and wished for their art. They were full speed ahead, took a few hits and they parked. Engine fully functional, just a few dents in the car. You never expect them to do this when they start. Progress out of goal till that first failure strips them of heart. Gym is packed in January, but who's lifting in March? Look, I'm sick of hearing your resolutions.